Hi. So one of the little things I wanted to talk about is our aspects or who we are formed to be like. What I mean is, like, I talk about entities and entity clusters in our space. I talk about soul contracts and agreements we have in life. And we basically look at the story we tell ourselves every day. From your birth up until this moment, there have been events that have happened quite a few times. Some of you just see yourself as an unlucky person. Like, you can't get your car spot, you can't get your favorite meal, people run out of things, or just really unlucky. Murphy's Law following you around all the time. Others, they might have a person they like, yet they get ignored, they get abandoned, they get sort of rejected, and like it just keeps on happening. You find someone new or you really like someone, you do everything to get them, manifestation and talking and everything else, like just seem to be putting your best efforts in getting what you want, and yet you still have same old result. People get relationships and they get cheated on. People attract narcissists. So each and every one of us have a different case, but there are some key things that happen in our life that are repetitive in a way, that there's a pattern, and we wonder why. Why is it happening to us? So the moment of birth up until now, each and everything that has happened to you allowed you to create the story about yourself and life and how everything is. And it changes, but at the same time, it's like programming ourselves with things. And not just as a belief, not just we think and assume how life is, but in a way like DNA. And it's not exactly that, but everything we see and everything we have experienced, like we have experienced up until now, and every single day, you think about life. Your thoughts read to emotions, but at the same time, it goes the other way. You feel things about life, and then you end up thinking. For example, this person abandoned you, rejected you, or said something. They pissed you off, or they made you feel bad, wrong, and guilty. Something happens. You have feelings about a situation. You have thoughts, but you have feelings. And a lot of us end up asking, why? Why me? Why does this happen to me? A lot of those whys, and we will look for various answers. But eventually, the answer we get is the story we're going to tell ourselves. Oh, well, I'm just unlucky. I'm a targeted individual. I'm a victim. I'm always alone. I can't have any relationships. I'm like always guilty. I'm always wrong. I'm always attracting narcissists. I can never have the person I want. And, whatever we keep on telling ourselves is the story. But in that story, it's not just agreements. It's not just beliefs. It's not the feelings and thoughts and emotions and all the stuff, but it's also a personality of who we are and assumed to be, and who life turned us and shaped us into. By life, I mean, people, events, and everything that happens that causes you to behave and be like something. For those that have experienced hardships in relationships, life has turned you into something. And you have to ask yourself, what? What did life turn you into? Life turned me into a victim. Life turned me into like a shy, abandoned person. Life turned me into a person that thinks that, like I'll never connect to anyone else. I'm completely lonely. And no one can relate to me except my dog, my cat, my parrot, or whoever you have, if you have anyone really. And so like a lot of these things happen to us. And I think like, each and every one of us do this in their work, one way or the other. Doesn't matter what kind of work. If you're working on yourself, you're doing a lot, and good job. But it's like very important to become aware of those aspects that we are, our personalities. It's like people call about this multiple personality disorder, this whole, like having several personalities and aspects of who we are, all those emotions being different. One day you're this, next day you're that, but it's all us. And I think like all of those like called diseases, disorders, and syndromes and all the stuff, we're not exploring it enough and in various ways. It's not like pills are going to solve all your problems. would be great, but life doesn't work like that. And all of those personalities, like where it is really you, or we have someone else in our space, we have to treat it, or we can possibly treat that as another person. As in, okay, so what's the fucking point of this video? I think like one of the things while doing this inner work and while looking what did life or certain events shaped you into, we find a specific personality or behavior or a thing that we become. You know, a victim, always abandoned, attracting the negative, attracting the narcissist, you know, like being unlucky, being a targeted individual, and however we see ourselves to be sometimes, however we feel about life. And it's not just the emotions. Your physical body feels stuff. It feels like pain over here. It feels empty. It feels like you have nothing for some people. And when you describe and define those things for yourself, this is the most important part. No one really cares about that stuff. As in, it's not that important to others, but for yourself, it should be in a way so that you would know what you're dealing with exactly, to understand yourself and to deal with those little issues. And so with that, you look at, let's say, the pattern you have in life. You know, each and every one of us will have a different pattern. And for me, it used to be abandonment. Right now, I'm still looking for, okay, like what's the repetitive cycle? Maybe just, you know, sharing certain information or looking for that next thing. Like I'm still in the search mode. But I work with a lot of people who come back to me or just like, hey, like I need help. And they're going to tell me their stories. And each story, like I look and like I listen about their life, and it just happens again and again and again when in like the span of 60 years, and they have experienced certain things quite a few times. And it becomes a pattern that they attract certain people, certain events, accidents in their life, like various things happen. But that stuff, those patterns, those events shape us into something. And so once we label it, doesn't matter if you like it or not, it's just for yourself to identify. Are you like, is it cucumbers or is it pickles or is it, what is it? So for yourself to know, it's good, but that's all you need. So once you describe that, once you identify what it is, you treat that aspect, personality, or whatever life has shaped you into as another person, just for a moment. And what you're going to do, you're going to talk to this another part of you, this entity or whatever it is, because sometimes it's us. It's really us. We've just experienced a lot and a part of us is shaped into something. Other times life happens and we get attacked. We get things or like, let's say fragments from other people. We get entities. We have a lot of things happening. So whatever is in our space, we need to deal with it. So it doesn't matter if it's an entity, if it's you, if it's someone else's fragment, we deal with it. And by that, I would just like look at that aspect as another person. And you simply think of sitting down to have a conversation. Whatever setting you would create in your mind, it's good and important so that you would be safe and feel comfortable. It is your own kingdom. You know, my home is my castle, that kind of saying. So think of this little location, the scenery, where you would feel comfortable to have a chat with someone. Where it is in a forest, which is for some people like let's hope it's not a nighttime in a forest, but others might have like little cafe place, maybe a restaurant, maybe at the beach, maybe just, you know, like cozy couch in the living room or something. So whatever setting you create, think of like, okay, you have comfort, you have control, it's your safety, no one can enter there. Sort of define the rules for your own little pocket room, so to speak. And by that, once you're done with that step, you invite that other aspect or a part that life has shaped you into to have a conversation. So where it is the victim you, where it is the part of you that attracts all the negative, attracts a narcissist, the part of you that keeps on, you know, having failed relationships, that is constantly lonely, that is constantly abandoned, whatever that thing is, you imagine it sitting down on the couch next to you or whatever setting you have, and you simply have a conversation. Well, having this conversation, it is important to be a good listener and to be curious, just as if you were talking to a friend who had an issue and you really genuinely wanted to help them. And instead of teaching them about life, you would like to allow them to have maybe a few realizations and just lead the conversation by questions and being a good listener, allowing them to talk it out, and you acknowledge them and you ask more, and like the conversation goes on, but you guide it. And with that idea, you talk this another aspect of you, or an entity, or a cluster, or whatever you happen to spot in your space that life has shaped you into by certain harsh events that you didn't like, that traumatized you in one way or the other. And when you talk, choose whatever identity or part or aspect that is, but be specific, not like the part of you that fails with money, or the part of you that has messed up relationships. A bit more specific, where a part of you that has a really hard time making money, a part of you that cannot find a job, a part of you that constantly keeps on getting fired, a part of you that constantly keeps on getting abandoned, or something like that in those lines. So with that in mind, you ask a question like, okay, and you can sort of put in or insert that identity. From your perspective, what seems to be the problem? And that part of you that might be getting abandoned says, well, I just feel like maybe I have too high of a standards or values for this world. Like everyone I connect to, eventually they don't understand me, we don't fit in, or we have great conversations, we connect, we have this deep connection, and then they just ghost me, they disappear, they never write back, they ignore. Okay, well, what hurts you most in this situation? And you just try to be understanding, listen, don't teach them, don't tell them what to do, just ask questions. And with that conversation, it's important to allow that aspect of yourself or an entity or whoever you end up talking to, allow them to talk it out. Like a person going to the church to talk about their sins and feel comfortable and like, I got it off my chest. And now they feel better. That part of you needs that too. But that aspect that you're talking to is you, who believes that life is that way. And even though you're trying to revoke agreements, even though you're trying to get rid of entities, even though you're doing all this inner work, you still have this personality lingering around. Even if it's not active all the time, when the key moments happen in life, certain words you're going to say, certain phrases, the way you're going to feel and express yourself will not be everything that you are, but specifically that aspect at certain times. And that aspect that is hurt, that has been programmed by life, that has been shaped into something, is triggered, is hurt, it's, whatever happened, it's defective, so to speak. And whenever you have something similar happening again in your life, that aspect of you is now the Trojan horse who has been programmed and turned into something, will try to do its best, yet still fail and keep on repeating the same old past mistakes. Which is why when we spot, agreements and everything else, we get rid of it. But this aspect we forget about. We work on ourselves. We think like, I'm doing this inner work, that part should be out. But if we focus on our beliefs or thoughts or emotions, and yet this aspect is left behind, unaddressed, and it can come back. Like it can be dormant and it can be asleep, and you will not notice it until, let's say again, few years pass, half a year pass. I don't know, like quite a period of time, and certain things you're trying to do again that has allowed this part to be active at those times is now waking it up, and it's going to become active. It's going to make you do things or just behave like a magnet. Like you might be just really loving person, really kind and caring. You want to help others. You want to get better in life. And one thing that you wanted to do was, share your success stories. And you might have a thing in your car. You might have your hard drive full of data, and someone just comes in and steals it. Again, there's this part of you that wants something in life, yet constantly, whenever you're about to do something, stuff gets stolen from you. Something happens, you get attacked, the technology fails, and boom, your hard drive is not working anymore. Your instruments are like, oops, it broke the string, or whatever happens. So in all that, as we talk to this aspect of yourself, the goal is to make it leave, to acknowledge its problems, to be understanding, to ask questions that will allow that part of you or that entity to have some introspection, look within, and like, oh shit, it's been happening quite a bit. And it's all a program, it's not really me, maybe. It's great if you can have that kind of a conversation and help them to wake up. But there's also, the common things I keep on saying, give them the permission to leave, create a place for them to go to, like acknowledge their things, tell them of what has happened and let them know of it. Be thankful for them being in your space, because that part of you thinks it was doing a really good job, even though it failed, even though it hurt you in one way by just, like being like magnet and attracting all the worst stuff. That part of you was you, just unlucky. And you acknowledging that part is like, it's gonna like have some like relief, like, oh, at least someone noticed, like I had good intentions, I just failed and stuff. So from that moment on, you have this old story you've told yourself your whole life or for quite a while. And from this moment on, just like with manifestation, you have to rewrite your life as if that part of you is gone. And it's not an easy thing, but what would your life be like if that part wasn't there anymore? If those events wouldn't happen in life where, oh, wow, I have a lot of self-love. I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. I'm feeling confident. I feel like I can live again. I can talk to people. I can get what I want. I can be successful. And with all that, like you start creating or writing this new personality and identity. And the thing is, the negative stuff that we have right now has been built up through over years. So one night or 5 minutes, if that's the best you can do, of thinking positive, as if your future was right now, of trying to feel stuff and not just like, it feels good, but physically feel stuff. We think that like a lot of this manifestation, like I won the lottery, yay, you're supposed to be happy, but we're thinking about feeling emotions. You have to feel physically. How would you feel physically if you've had $1 million right now? You just won. And you're like, oh my God, like I can get my dream car. I can get my dream house. I can finally relax and physically sit in your couch or the chair, just slush and finally, this relief. Not just the emotion, but physically you have to act it out. And so those are just few parts. But the thing is, again, the negative things form your neural network. It's been programmed day after day, minute after minute for a very long period of time. So these changes for the positive, to manifest the better you, to rewrite your personality, your identity, and who you are, it's not an overnight thing. It's an everyday practice. So all this time you spend telling yourself the old story, to tell yourself the new one won't be easy. But it's a simple idea. It's a lot of hard work, and it is worth it. If you decide like, yeah, like I've been lonely, I've been abandoned, I've been gaslighted, I've been, stolen from, and all this. So the new me, the future me that I want, and I have an idea of what I would like to be right now in this moment, is confident. It's feeling very content. I have a lot of self-love for myself. I have everything I want in this world. And I might not want much, but I have the people that love me and I love them back, and we have a great relationship. And you just work at it. Literally telling yourself a new story. And all of you know this, you've probably listened to tons of like all these manifestation videos on how to do it. But important part is that we have to remember it's like building a muscle. You didn't build all your programming and like misfortunes and everything else overnight. It's been years after years after years of bad things happening to you, and you seeing life the way it is and telling yourself the story of how you are the victim, of how no one sees you, of how that girl doesn't write back, of how your relationships will be hard, of how your physical body might have issues. And just the same way, we have to spend quite a bit of time working on our new self, but it's worth it. So that would be the idea, not just agreements, not just entities, not just thoughts and feelings, but the identity. And specifically, ask yourself the question, what did life shape me into? That's a very important thing. To see not just people, not just your own personalities, but life as certain events shape you into something, and find that, at least one aspect. one thing, one personality, one identity that you have that life has shaped you into. And when you see that, you can work on it, work on removing it out of your space, because it's like a Trojan horse. When you try to change, that part of you will get in the way because it's programmed. It's going to keep on coming back. So getting rid of that aspect is very important. So that would be just the thing I wanted to share. Hopefully for some of you, it might be helpful. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.